It's probably easier to get excerpts though, because when you get the passages, you don't have to memorize quotes and evidence, so it's a little bit easier. But essentially, how to approach the text. Well, side by side, we will consider both the original text as well as its adaptation. So the original text and the adaptation will need to be closely analyzed. And this will be genre-specific analysis, relevant to genre conventions of the genre of each of these two. So from this, as we closely analyze, we will be able to draw similarities and differences between the original and adaptation and the effects of these similarities and differences. And this will form the basis of our interpretation. Quite straightforward, guys, especially when visualizing this way. So how does meaning change when the form of a text changes? We need to be super aware of genre constraints. So identifying and analyzing particular text forms is a skill. We need to study genre features you will and constraints, what cannot be done in a particular genre or what is not commonly done. You will be doing this, in your classes, or if need be, you can investigate it online. There is a lot of materials for that. But we need to address both similarities and differences between texts. When we address similarities, we don't want to spend too much time talking about what is similar. So we'll identify a similarity, you know, discuss it a little bit. How does the evidence from both the adaptation and original show that this is a similarity? And then our real focus is differences. So we'll identify small differences and discuss them. And that's a lot more important to find those nuances than talk about similarities. We do need both, but the main focus is differences, and this is where we need that elevated analysis. So we also need to address deliberate changes, say because um, changes within the adaptation, things that are different from the original, due to the fact that the author wanted to make them, versus inevitable changes. So these are the changes that are present due to the genre transformation, because the original and the adaptation are in a different genre. Most straightforward example, if we're adapting a novel, a book is very long. So if we have a film, a lot of things will be excluded from that book or shortened down, because the length of a movie is usually less than a couple of hours. But this is just a very straightforward example. Some features are meaningful in isolation as well, such as inclusion of narration, removing certain scenes, changing the ending in particular, but others will depend on the text type and authorial intent. And both of these are very worth acknowledging and will boost your analysis. So you can analyze a few features that may be meaningful in isolation, but it's much more valuable if you can identify those relating to text type and authorial intent. And you will have to write on a variety of text types for each SAC. So some important considerations with adaptations and transformations. First off, what changes are necessitated, they cannot be avoided because of the genre. So here we consider the exigencies and the constraints of genre, what a genre can and cannot do. What has been intentionally kept the same. This is referred to in terms of meta language as indispensable content. And we can relate this back to authorial intent in some circumstances in particular. We may also discuss what has been intentionally changed, so our deliberate departures, and what has been reordered or restructured. And this is to do with sequence or order. Scenes might get moved around, and this very often happens. So think about the significance of that. How does the social context impact the content, and why or how it changes? Um, Again, remember that I mentioned earlier that oftentimes there will be um, a wide, many years will have gone past from when the original was published to when the adaptation was published or came out. So consider that there is a different social context potentially, and there is a different time period, and therefore, of course, social context is might be different. So some changes might have been necessitated by that, and also how our views and values communicated. And there's likely to be significant differences in that because the authors are different. They have different views and values. So consider the significance of that as well. And most importantly, our most important question in adaptations and transformations: why have these decisions been made? The rationale or the reasons behind doing the adaptation being different, for instance.